You've heard people talk before about breakthrough or breakout albums, and Waking the Fallen by Avenged Sevenfold could actually fall within that category. Though it doesn't have all of the sales figures and the impressions that their next album, City of Evil, does, this is an album that's still provided to be a fitting launch pad for the Avenged Sevenfold legend. Sounding the Seventh Trumpet was an alright heralding cry. It's almost like the John the Baptist to the Jesus Christ of Waking the Fallen. This is an album that established a lot of the trademarks that Avenged Sevenfold is still somewhat known for today. It's one that definitely established Sinister Gates' trademark guitar sound, as it's done literally throughout the entire course of the album. But this is something that was only minorly influenced on sounding the Seventh Trumpet. This is instead something that on Waking the Fallen is a constant. It's something that's helping to build Avenged Sevenfold's sound and establishing that this is what they're all about. A second portion is the fact that there's a lot less in the way of rugged singing. There's a lot more clean singing on this by comparison to the previous disc. So it showcases that already, 2 albums into their career, Avenged Sevenfold was doing a little bit of house cleaning, was incorporating a bit of a metamorphosis within their own sound, and really looking at what worked the best for them. And it definitely seems that this clean approach gave them the ability to have a little bit of ruggedness, maintain a bit of a traditional metal philosophy, while at the same time also explore very heartfelt and emotional tracks. This is definitely an album that also showcases a little bit of their cinematic side, with the I Won't See You Tonight parts 1 and 2 really showcasing their ability to write a long song, but also give it a bigger, larger-than-life feel to it. The entire album really kind of has that feel to it somewhat, where there's some locations that are exceptionally rugged, almost like an action sequence or a critical piece of dramatic plot point, whereas with others, it definitely tones things down a good bit, almost like you're starting to get deeper and deeper into a character's emotional side or their backstory. This album has a lot of great things going for it. It has one of their first keynote singles with Unholy Confessions, coming in at track number 2, and it has some of my favorite tracks on it as well, including the track Desecrate Through Reverence. That song just has a really, really wicked intro to it. It has a very, very good atmosphere that surrounds it. Overall, just a pretty killer track. If Waking the Fallen suffers from anything, really, to be perfectly blunt, it's the fact that it's a bit overambitious. This is a long album, especially the second half, and this gets very, very tedious very quickly. Fortunately enough, the songwriting does its best in order to really kind of even things out a little bit and make the whole thing listenable in one sitting, but it's still a bit of a struggle. It's not that these are songs that are devoid of meaning, either that or they're tracks that sound all of the same. It's just the fact that it's a tedious profession to go all the way through. The procession of tracks definitely does its best to kind of hold their own, but man, it's very, very easy to kind of walk away and kind of come back later in order to revisit this beast. Now, whenever we take a look at how it's held up today, we first have to examine what it meant to 2003. In 2003, this kind of album was pretty rare in this style of music, in this little, subsection of heavy metal. There are tons of metal bands that were attempting to really fuse together different genres. That's the reason why we have the plethora of subgenres that we do to this day. However, with a band that was coming forward that had sort of a modern metal sound, one that had a very accessible sound, one that could almost be played on the radio and be considered to be a metal stalwart for the next century, maybe the next century's Metallica, this was definitely one that was extremely, it came out of left field as a success story. Aside from the album being exceptionally lengthy and sometimes growing tired of itself, it's not a bad disc. In fact, it's pretty good. Their second effort definitely built on a lot of the momentum that they were beginning on their first release, on Sounding the Seventh Trumpet. It's instead an album that showcases a band that already has a tighter songwriting core, people who are already extremely comfortable with one another and already pushing themselves to new limits, as opposed to just sticking with what works. They're not just throwing spaghetti on the wall and hoping it sticks every time. They're trying other foods. They're trying beverages. Maybe they're even trying plants and animals. Whatever sticks, it's been really working very well for them. At least that's what the Waking the Fallen sessions kind of were able to suggest. Now, whenever we take a look at it in 2015, well, It's seen more so as a landmark stepping stone. It's seen as Avenged Sevenfold announcing formally to the world that they've arrived and that they have the ability to write an album that has terrific execution, songwriting that is definitely above average, but also that they are a force to be reckoned with. This is definitely one that showed the band taking things to new heights, and that's what you want to do as a band. You don't want to just rest on your laurels and maintain yourself at the same position that you were in whenever you first came out. If you do that, then however well you were received the first time you came out is going to be your peak, regardless of the fact that you're doing the same damn thing. If you take a look at some bands that famously have done that, you understand that, sure, they may have a period of high times for a little while, even maybe 2 to 3 albums if they're doing the same thing. But eventually people do grow tired of the same old routine. People make a lot of jokes about Nickelback, but the sales figures have gone down. That's evidence enough that doing the same thing all the time is not exactly what's best for business. But with Avenged Sevenfold, they were going to continue to push more heights. They were going to push higher and higher. Think about what Waking the Fallen would be as a concept album and build a little bit more to their musical character, and you have the album that we're going to be talking about next, which is their best-selling album and probably their most well-known album, the one that everybody tends to refer to whenever they talk about the ultimate Avenged Sevenfold experience. We're talking about City of Evil. Well, not right now, but we will be, so stay tuned.